So let's go on the side here. I'm going to clean and close all these test folders so we have some more place to work. I'm going to select my content view, and let's actually rename this one into home view. Right click, go to refactor, rename. And it will be a home view. I always like to change this commented out part as well. So now we're going to create another folder here. Let's create a new group, and I'm going to call this model. This is where all our model related files will go. And let's create a new file inside our model, and I'm going to call this the game mod. It's going to be a Swift file, not a Swift UI. So let's call this game mod, and this will create a file for us. So let's have an enum here, which is going to hold all the game types for us. So call this game mod, and it's going to be a case iterable, so we can go over every single case of our enum, and also identifiable. So we will have an ID, because we are confirming to identifiable protocol. It should have an ID, a unique, something unique. So our ID is going to be, we just return self. Because every single element of our game mode by itself, it's going to be unique, so that we can use the object itself as our ID. Then we are going to obviously have our cases, because this is an enum, and we're going to have a case against human, against CPU, and online. So these are the three cases. And each game mode, we are going to put some variables which will help us in building our UI. So we will have a variable name, which is a string. And we are going to use a switch statement here on self. So depending on what mode we are, we're going to set our name based on that mode. So just click on the fix here. It will automatically fill all the required parameters we need to give in. So in case if we are against human mode, we want to return, and we want to return versus CPU. Sorry. This goes here. This is versus human. And for online, we just say return online. Actually, before we move any further, because I don't like to hard code all these strings inside the code, it's always a good idea if you create a file and put all your strings there, and then you can reuse that and you don't have to hard code and get any typos. And also another thing it's good for, if you try to localize your application for different languages, everything will be in one place, and you just go and do your locale there with all the translations, and you can access that. So let's create a new file, and it's going to be a Swift file again, and I'm going to call this up strings. And inside, let's create a struct called up strings, and we will have some static variables here, constants actually. Let's write what we need here. We need versus CPU, which is equal to, then we need, let's just copy this line. It will be versus human. And if you don't know to duplicate any line, you just say Command D on the line. It will automatically duplicate the line underneath. And this is going to be online. And we just get rid of it on line. Actually, since we are here, let's also put our application name. So call this app name, and it's going to be Tic Tac Toe, so that we don't have to hard code that as well. So going back to our game mode, we are going to here, instead of putting all this typing, I will say app strings dot versus human. This one is going to be app strings dot versus CPU and online. So this way, if you decide to change something, actually, you can just go to your strings, do all your changes, and throughout your application, everything is going to be changed, and you don't have to go around every file and find what code you wrote and where. Another thing I want to use is a different background color for each of our game mode, so that we will get all the information from our game mode, the title, the name, and the background of our button, so that we don't have to do anything manually. So let's create a variable color, which is a type of color. And again, we are going to use a switch statement here on self. And depending on the mode of the game, we are going to return some kind of color. We need to import our Swift UI because we want to use the color here, and our Xcode is complaining. And let's quickly fix this and get all the types in our switch statement. So against human, we want to return color.indigo. Against CPU is going to be return color.red. And finally, for online, it's going to be green. All right, so this is what we need for our game mode. So we have 3 game modes. We confirm to case iterable, so that we can go, we can like have an array of every single game mode. So we will go through and create the buttons automatically. And identifiable, because again, we're going to use this in for each loop. We need them each to be identifiable. That's why we have this ID, which basically returns the game mode itself, which is unique. Then we have these 2 variables that are created on runtime. And for each one, the name and the color will be calculated and returned, so that we can use depending on the game mode. So let's get back to our home view. And here, instead of now typing that we need button for every mode, I'm going to get rid of this. And inside our VStack, we're going to have a for each loop. And we're going to say we want for every game mode. And here where it comes the case iterable, all cases. And we need to say what is the ID in this case. We can just say /self. And what we are getting in is the mode. So now we can use this mode, which is a game mode that has a name and a color. And we can use that in order to create our button. So let's create the button. Again, the code goes here, a label goes here, and inside our label, we will have a text, and the text will be the mode dot the name of the button. So you can see everything appears here, all 3. We didn't have to create any button manually. Everything will do automatically for us. And then we want to add some kind of background. We could say just add a background color here, and it would be like our mode.color, but this really doesn't look nice. So what we are going to do is to create a special style for our application, that we will apply that style to our buttons, so that all the buttons would look nicely on every platform or every size of our screen that we are going to have for our application.